general elections. And having been given the permission, I indeed explained, first of all, why I was not available to be a candidate, and that having been a candidate for the Forum for Democratic Change in the previous 3 elections, and even one before the Forum for Democratic Change was formed in 2001, I had considered it necessary to be clear to the party that I would not be a candidate in 2021. And I did this through a formal communication to the party leaders at a meeting that was held in Choto in Namugongo in 2018. That was more than 2 years, in fact, close to 3 years before the next election. And the purpose of that meeting was to cause the party to select their next flag bearer in good time, since this would be a new flag bearer. And I pointed out to them why I would not be available for selection as a candidate in that election. So that was one of the points I communicated to the National Council, my absence as a candidate. The second point was my absence as a campaigner, and I pointed out to them that there were 2 main reasons why I did not become a campaigner. The first one, which concerned me, was the whole question of the funding that I had got very credible information on as having come from the very place that we sought to dislodge from leadership. And that we had tried to discuss this with our colleagues whom we were convinced were involved, and that those discussions did not yield any results. So first, there was, at the very minimum, suspicion of hostile money having come into our party for the elections and from a source that could only be hostile, which was not adequately resolved to certainly my satisfaction. But that secondly, as if to indeed confirm my worries, that when the candidate was eventually selected, the candidate, as usual, selected a campaign management team, a campaign bureau, which is absolutely critical for a presidential election. Because a presidential election is a campaign that's held in the whole country and within a short time. And it's critical that there is effective campaigning going on across the country, even where the candidate is not and where the candidate has been. And it's also such a team that mobilizes resources that are necessary, planning and resources that are necessary for the conduct of the campaign. So a campaign team was appointed, but shortly thereafter disbanded. And so we had a presidential candidate without a campaign management team for the first time. That then cannot be a serious campaign once you have no planning and no management of such a process. And as I have said, this on top of having got information that the money actually came from another candidate, sort of confirmed to me that it was intended to weaken any or to avoid any serious challenge to where the source of the money had come from. And so, in that regard, and considering the risks of the campaign, especially in that particular campaign where there was COVID, I decided to stay away from campaigning also. Now, having addressed the National Council in those terms in November of last year, the matter then now became more discussed within the party, and certainly it spilled into the public and now became a public debate. But I would like to also once again point out that between 2020, when this information came up, and 2022, when I presented it to the National Council, there was a lot of attempt at trying to indeed get to the bottom of this matter and manage it within the confines of our party. Because even if one may be without consultations, made a decision to raise funds from such sources, if it is understood that this has happened, it could be managed differently to immunize the party from the dangers it would face. And we took a lot of time trying to do that. Regrettably, we failed, and that is why it came to the National Council. And of course, once I presented it to the National Council, the Honorable Nathan Nandala Mafabi then offered an immediate response to the National Council. And on the basis of that, the National Council, considering that these were just now pieces of information from me and from him, they, in their wisdom, decided to set up what was termed the Special Elders Committee to inquire into this matter. And the Special Elders Committee was not appointed until 6 months later. The reason the National Executive Committee, or rather the President of the party, made recommendations to the National Executive Committee, the appointment of his appointment. And I understand the National Executive Committee approved his appointment of the Elders Committee. Now, that is, I think, part of the weakness this committee lies. It was appointed by the accused and would report to the same accused. In fact, it was inaugurated by the accused, and on the inauguration, it assigned the task that they were supposed to. I did not learn of the task that was given to them the in fact, until this money issue arose, I considered him not just a colleague, but even a friend. And it was on that basis, indeed, that he entrusted me with 300 million shillings, which I will be also talking about at this meeting. He entrusted me that 300 million shillings just between the two of us. There is no record of the kind, no acknowledgement, note or anything. That issues the committee that they are absolutely issues from the time the Honorable Nandala Mafabi entrusted me to keep his 300 million shillings up to the time I reported to the National Council. So I gave them the whole narration of what happened. And I also pointed out to them that therefore they will help the party primarily by establishing the facts relating to the money, and that the facts would be found in the accounts of the party, of the party, which accounts and records we have been inquiring into ourselves prior to my appearance before the National Council, but have been denied because eventually they said we were not entitled to such information. So I thought that this committee now was going to help us get the facts. Because up until then, and I dare say until now, even as we sit here, nobody in the party knew where the money came from, how much it was, and how money that was already in the party. So neither the acting party president then, nor the substantive party president, the Honorable Patrick Amuyat-Boy, knew how much money had been secured by the party, from where, on what time, and how it was being used. And so that's why I emphasize the committee that this is the best help they can give to the party. Establish the facts. How much money came, whether borrowed, whether donated, whether stolen or whatever, how much money came to the party. How was it deployed? And the committee told me they were going to indeed inquire. They said they had many people to interview. That is what eventually reported on this report. Or eventually, we have now received their report. Maybe before I leave the committee situation, it's also maybe pertinent to point out that the committee appointed as 7 members. One refused to take up the appointment, and I don't know what happened. So actually only 6 turned up as members. One of the members is vice chairman of the party, and therefore a member of the chair that would receive the report. So he was clearly inquiring that he set up. This was pointed this out, but he didn't consider it necessary to recuse himself. And one of the members eventually resigned from the committee with protestation of how the committee was conducting itself. And he especially in his protestation, written protestation, pointed out that the committee secretariat of the committee, the secretary of the committee, who I understand was appointed by the Honorable Nandala Fabi,